Oh, let me tell you something. Busting makes me feel good.
All right.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting. We're diving right in.
All right.
That's how we do it. Blockbusting, a podcast where we love to hate the movies. I'm your host, Jay Light. My guest today, JD Witherspoon.
What's up?
Well,
How you
much,
doing,
man.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good, dude. I literally just came from playing basketball.
I appreciate that you don't seem like you just played basketball.
Right? Well, I dressed up. I changed my clothes. I was like, I can't be sweating on this couch. I was like, that's obnoxious.
That's so considerate.
Mhm.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
You do have a post workout fruit
I got
going
my
on over there.
post-workout fruit.
A little Hispanic fruit with a little.
I won't eat it on the podcast because I learned eating on podcasts is the devil. I did that. I think I did that once on accident. I was like chewing on my this gaming podcast I do with my best friend.
Yeah.
And I just lost. I wasn't paying attention. They were talking, and I just had like a snack, and I was just like, "Yeah, guys, sure, that's just of course." And then people were like, "What in God's name are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's kind of annoying. It's very audible. These
It's
podcasts."
all the smacks. It's one of my biggest pet peeves, and I don't see it that often. But when somebody is chewing gum on the mic on a podcast or on stage,
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah,
because you just hear everything.
Yeah, I don't even think I was like I was chewing, but the mics were so good you could hear past the lips.
Right,
you could hear the.
It became an ASMR podcast.
Yeah, it was very ASMR. It was very ASMR.
That's all you really need to do, though. I guess if you want to chew on air, you can just switch over to do an ASMR channel. And
you know what's funny? I don't think anyone does an ASMR podcast. That would be a good.
There has to be.
I don't think so. Maybe, but I'm saying like that I can think of. That's a good idea.
That is a good idea.
We might have to do that.
Oh my god! I think let's fuck Blockbusting. We're gonna do. Welcome.
I'm just thinking.
Drum busting.
The whole thing would be like this. It would be down here, but people are like, oh man, that would either be very soothing or very frustrating.
Yeah,
it's one of the two.
I think I would imagine people could use something like that to fall asleep to. I've heard some sleep help podcasts, but they're always just somebody telling a story. One time, me and my girlfriend were trying to listen to one of those because we both have trouble falling asleep, and we tried listening to one, and most of them it's usually like somebody just droning on and talking, like essentially like reading a Wikipedia page or telling some boring story. But this one, it randomly selected one that was like the monkey on the island was hanging out, and it was using a voice just like that, and we started laughing.
Yeah, like
we
a Curious
sleep.
George storybook. Like,
it was weird, man.
Super weird.
I couldn't.
You're like,
couldn't
now I
get
can't
behind
sleep at all because I'm having nightmares about that person's voice.
I was too hyped up after that. I couldn't sleep. I was like, this is weird.
There's nothing worse than when you put on something that you think's going to help you sleep and it immediately wakes you up even more. That's not fun. No.
Do you have that when you watch movies sometimes? Do you find movies that like are so you think are going to keep you like interested movies and then you just like get distracted, you fall asleep or something?
You know what? I hate when that happens, but yes, there's like I've had like movies that I'm excited about. Go see them in theaters and then I'm like, this isn't that good.
Right.
And next thing you know, like through the third act, I'm napping.
Yeah.
And that's the worst. I know I have a friend who does that constantly, that me and my friends just don't invite him anymore to movie scenes because we're like, bro, you sleep through the third act of every movie. Like it's just a thing you do.
I tried to watch Blade Runner a few times before the new one came out a couple years ago. And so I have a friend of mine who a guy who I've known for years and knows that I have a woeful lack of movie knowledge of some like big tent like Blade Runner and Fifth Element. And these are movies he's tried to show me, and the way my schedule was at the time, I was only available super late at night. So I was like, "Hey, let's watch these movies." He's like, "This is super late at night. What if you fall asleep?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "No, I promise." And he tried to do it with me for Blade Runner and Fifth Element. I fell asleep both times at the exact same part, and he was so mad at me.
Yeah, no, it's not fun when you and your friends want to enjoy a movie and then someone sleeps through it, and you're like, and then they're like, what happened? It's like, I don't even want to talk to you anymore because you're frustrated. You're like, dude, we were trying to stay, like, just if that's the case, say you can't stay up late. You can't handle it.
It's totally, hey, it's fine.
I can do that. I have seen many a midnight showing, like, or even 1 or 2 in the morning if it was that crazy a movie.
At the very least, drink some coffee or something beforehand.
Something, or just say you're not coming.
Yeah,
go home. Stay home. Don't make my night worse. I don't like that. Yeah, I've fallen asleep on movies with my wife, and she hates it.
Oh,
like she gets in my ass about it. Like as soon as the movie's over and I wake up, I'm like, oh man. She's like, yeah, let's go home. I'm like, oh, what happened? Is everything? She's like, you're sleeping through the movie. Like that's not what date nights is about.
Right.
So
my girlfriend is nice. She'll nudge me at least. But if we're watching it at home instead of like out of the movie theater, she'll say, hey, do you want to just go to bed and not watch this movie? And then I'll be like, no, let's try and watch the movie. And then I'll fall asleep again like 20 minutes later. She'll be like, we were going to go to bed.
Right.
You've done this to yourself.
Yeah, that's how it is.
So the movie you've come in to hate today, to talk about hating, it's an interesting choice. So this is a movie that, truthfully, I did not know existed.
Really?
I had completely forgotten that this movie came out.
He's got a few.
And that is the 2014 Hercules. With Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson starring.
Finally, Hercules is here. That's you know what's funny? He's starting to come into his roles now.
Yeah,
but for the first like decade of his films, it's just Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson dressed as a character, but he's still Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Right.
Every movie.
It's the period in his life when they hadn't dropped The Rock from his credits yet, from his billing on a movie poster.
Yes.
Before he's in the Dwayne Johnson phase of his career.
It's still he's still somewhat still there, like acting wise. It's not you can't do much with a guy who's just like, he's just a behemoth of a man.
Right.
How else do you sell him?
He's covered in tattoos that they're contractually not allowed to cover up.
Yeah.
And
he's very much like, write a Samoan thing into the movie. That's what's happening now.
You can't hide it. It is what it is.
He's like, nah.
So this movie, I don't remember it coming out. It came out in 2014.
I saw it with my friends. That's why I remember it, and I remember it was ass.
So tell me about your experience watching this movie
the first time. Oh man,
Why did you want to go see it? What happened? What was it like?
Because me and my douchey friends were just like, man movie, bro movie. It's time. Hey, it's third. And mind you, we're still doing like midnight showings of bad movies. Like, even on bad movies, we're like, Thursday night, 11 p.m. You ready? And we're all people coming home from work. Like, I don't want to see that garbage. We knew it wasn't going to be great, but we had hopes. And I just remember seeing it, thinking like, oh, this is a weird way to tell Hercules. And then after it, we just were all like thinking it was we watched a long WWE match. We just watched long WWF, WWE, whatever you call it nowadays, match, The Rock, I think even when seeing it, I was even more upset with how they sold Hercules. I was kind of like, wait, is he a god? Is he not a demigod? I'm confused. Mm-hmm. And that's what really bugged me about that movie. It was like, first off, it's ass. Secondly, The Rock isn't even trying to sound like he's from like a time that doesn't exist. He's just like, listen to me. Right. We're going left. He's not doing like the whole, I am Hercules. Right. He's just like, I am Hercules. Yeah. Like he's not even selling it well.
Everyone else in this movie is at least doing somewhat an accent, a British accent, which still doesn't make any sense.
Or just like
sense.
An archaic, old timey, like my lord, like type of thing.
Right.
But he's not even. He's just kind of like. He's like, we should probably throw a Samoan scene in this movie so my tattoos make sense.
I'm gonna do this thing where I flip a horse.
Yeah. Oh, it's one of those things where the movie's confusing because I'm like, okay. When I saw it, I was like, so is he the god of Zeus? Is he just the name? Because the whole movie is like predicated on the storytelling of it.
Right.
And the legend of Hercules, I'm like, so, and he even says himself, he's like, hey, I'm just a pirate. I'm just a cowboy. Whatever.
just a guy.
Yeah, he said I'm just a guy who's trying to make his way. And I'm like, so are you like faking being Hercules this whole time? And I watched it last night into today, and like I refused to like sit down and watch it all the way. I was like, I'm gonna watch it the way I listen to podcasts and still do other things.
Right.
But I would glance back at it, and halfway through the movie, I'm like, yeah, even he doesn't sound like he believes in himself. What is this thing? So yeah, I don't know. First time it was a little broed out, and then I realized how bad it was, and I think I was just like, yeah, this is trash.
This is interesting. This is a very interesting choice. So, and by the way, just so we know, like what it sounded like for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who for some reason is still really like phoning it in as a performance, but I can't tell because I can never tell if he's actually phoning it in or if he's just fucking charming and I'm still likable no matter what.
I guess, yeah.
But this is his preparation for the role. This is what he said he did.
Oh my gosh! Please tell me.
To prepare for the role, Johnson took on a grueling training routine, stating, I trained and worked harder than ever for 8 months for this role. Lived alone and locked myself away like a moody 260-pound monk in Budapest for 6 months while filming. Goal was to completely transform into this character, disappear in the role. Press journalist asked me today, with the mental and physical toll the role had on me, would I do it again? Not only would I do it again, I'd do it twice.
What?
Is there ever been a more The Rock answer than this was the worst experience and I'd do it again and again after that?
But what does he mean? Like he went into training. That's his life. His whatever the Hercules is literally what he does every day when he's not doing movies. So that's not even a statement. You're just saying, yeah, would I work out? Yeah, I guess I'd work out. Yeah. You already work out.
He didn't look any different than he normally does.
No, his hair was different.
Right, but he's not spending 8 months like intensely staring in a mirror, growing his hair.
No, but
follicle by follicle.
No, and that wig did more than he did for the movie. I was like, the wig was more Hercules than he was, and that was the whole vibe. It was so weird. It was very much like. I don't even know how to explain it. I think it's one of those things where in the movie it starts off with his cousin or whatever,
his nephew,
his annoying freaking nephew who tries to use The Rock's clout to get girls, which I hated that. He's like, ladies, Hercules, I do know him. Hercules. Would you like to go sleep with me? I was like, wait, what? I was like, all right, dude, I don't like you already. And then. It's one of those things where you know why I think I didn't love it that much is because the commercials sold you the story the nephew sold you,
right? And
they sold you the whole like he defeated the three-headed serpent, he wailed on the boar of Tremegamon,
and he defeated the Nemean lion.
Yeah,
he did all of the labors. And here's and this is what. I did not expect to have a different opinion from you on this whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I kind of didn't mind the fact that they were like, Hercules might just be a guy who's just tricking everybody. He might just be a big con artist. I'm kind of okay with that interpretation.
I'm okay with it now that like 5 years have gone past
instead of that you were sold a bill of goods.
No, I think it's like, but I remember that was the annoying part of it. I was like, wait, so is he even? But there were certain things in the movie where it's like, oh no, he is some sort of a demigod because like, okay, The Rock's big and buff, but you're not moving statues, bro.
Right?
You know what I mean? There were certain moments where I'm like, okay, he brought down like a huge like monolith type.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, so maybe he is strong, but it's one of those things where I now coming around to it, I get it, but. I didn't like it at first because I wanted more bro stuff. But
it's a weird movie. It's a much weirder movie than I would have expected a Hercules like swords and sandals, old school Greek Roman myth kind of movie to be.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where within the first minute or 2 minutes where they show you all the one-on-one fights with him between the serpent, the boar, the three-headed dogs type stuff. I was expecting all that throughout the whole movie.
Right.
And then I realized it's like, oh no, Hercules is not as much a man, but he is a group of people who help and work together to defeat the odds.
Hercules is all of us.
Yeah, we are all Hercules, which they still kind of didn't even bring that to light. Like
Yeah.
you know it, but he still takes all the credit.
Right.
And I know he doesn't even want all the credit. That's the weirdest part. Yeah.
He doesn't want it. That's the thing. He wants to. I think he does. I mean, it's clear. There's some lines in here that are definitely like, oh, this is like a dog shit way of telling the story.
Yeah.
Like the part where they're sitting around this campfire after they've just like they're right before they have the weird QVC moment in the middle where they're like, this is Hercules' breastplate, this is his armor, this is his helmet, and they're like, it's just a helmet that covers up your face, and they're like, but it's Hercules' helmet. And it was a weird sequence, but even right before that they're having this like campfire scene, and the archer gal, the Amazonian woman, is like, you know, they say he killed his wife and kids. They say he entered a blood rage.
Yeah.
And I was like, you couldn't come up with a better name for that than Blood Rage, screenwriter?
Which is even more annoying because, you know, the way they told this story. Have you ever played the game God of War on PlayStation?
I've played it, and to the point where even when at the very end of the movie, when he's in the dungeon, what a fucking weird dungeon, by the way, where he's like chained to a post that doesn't make sense.
I forget the guy's name, but he's in all of the John Wick movies. He's like, now who are you?
Yeah. Ian McShane.
Ian McShane.
He's great. But he pulls the chains out and he does them like, oh, that's some Kratos shit right there.
Well, regardless of that, but that storyline is like from that game. The Kratos story. He kills his family because he was possessed by someone, and then the reason he's all white with like red stripes because he's covered in the ashes of his dead family. Oh. So when I'm watching this, I'm like, did they just rip off God of War? Like the whole time, like after that, they lost me. I was so done. I was tuned out. I was like, so someone was playing PlayStation while writing this movie and then said, hey, let's just like rip this whole murderous family tirade from God of War and put it in this movie. The Rock doesn't play that game. He won't care.
Right.
But then they explained that he didn't kill him. It was like his cousin or
it was
someone,
like his brother-in-law or something.
Brother.
Because it was the king of Athens.
And his reason for doing it was so dumb. Please finish what you were going to say. I apologize.
I mean, the reason he did it is basically like the modern day version of like, oh, I wanted to be an influencer, so I bought a bunch of followers and figured out how to hack your account. That's what he did. He was like, you got all these people to love you, and you're a man who couldn't have a price, which means I had to destroy your name.
Yeah.
It was kind of, I mean, it's like the most basic middle of the road
I just thought
storytelling. I was like, come on.
I was like, wait, you murdered his family because he wouldn't sell out for you?
Yeah.
Really?
There's a lot of people in this movie willing to murder their family members. Like that's what happened with John Hurt and his daughter's husband, who used to be the king. Mm-hmm. Oh, he was like ready to murder his son and his grandson.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of murdering going on.
A lot of murdering.
Families.
And you know, I think it's just one of those things where they took Hercules and tried to make him human with this movie, which is okay. Mm-hmm. I think it's just like, okay, but don't sell me on the commercials where he's like the Rock. Because, you know, when you're watching it, and if you're a dude who's just a fan of the Rock from all of his exploits where he's just like, you know, candy ass, Rudy Poo, fucking, you know, you smell with the Rock.
Smell
like,
with the Rock.
That's a character in itself. So when you're selling that character at, you know, playing Hercules, I'm like, oh hell yeah, let's watch this dude just like beat up Cerberus and huge animals and do everything the cartoon did, but like it's the Rock.
Right.
But then they like completely 180'd and said, no, he's a human, he has a bunch of friends who help him, he's very strong, but he's not super strong, you know. Like, he's still son of Zeus, but who knows if Zeus is even a god. Like that's what the vibe was the whole time. I was like, does Zeus even like control lightning or whatever, thunder?
That was the thing. I think maybe that's why I was able to sit and watch this movie and be like, oh, okay, I'm kind of pleasantly surprised. Like, I don't think this movie's a good movie by any means.
Yeah.
I don't think it's awful. I've certainly seen worse movies in my life, but I'm just like, yeah, this is fine. Like, there's some fun parts. I think a lot of the lines that they give Ian McShane are really solid and funny, and he delivers them well because he's like a true consummate professional actor. Yeah. But there's a lot of this movie that's just very much like middle of the road, and I think that if I had seen the trailers that you saw and seen, oh, this movie's going to be great. He's punching animals. oh man, Pete is going to be pissed when they see what happened in this movie.
Yeah.
And then you get the movie you get, which is The Rock is not a strong, he's just a guy who's like, oh, every once in a while he knows how to trick somebody into like holding a screw in his hand and punching somebody in the head.
You know?
Then it's like, okay, well, I don't feel like I was tricked.
Yeah.
I felt like, if anything, I was like, oh, okay. Why didn't more people watch this movie?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't people want to see this?
You got to go into this movie as a more mature movie-going audience member. I was like in my early or middle of the late 20s. I don't know where I was at 2014. I was around my 20s, but like, I think I listened to your episode about Inception. With your buddy, and how
just did that one.
and how you guys were talking about how you thought that was the pinnacle of movie making at a certain point, and I'm like, yes, everyone did think that at a certain point. We all thought that dreidel spinning meant that this was Oscar worthy. You know what I'm saying?
Because how could you not?
Yeah, and but now looking back, you're like, there's plot holes, there's issues. So I went into it not even thinking it was going to be that good. I just thought it would be that entertaining, and then it just turned into like, oh, this is weird. It's like a facade of Hercules. I'm not a fan.
Right.
And then even as the movie goes through it, you see things that are like stories of legend being like exposed.
Right.
That's what was killing me. Like every single time something would show up, like the three-headed serpent, and then he opens the bag and it's like, oh, it's a magician.
Right.
Wait, what?
The heads of his enemies wearing masks.
Yeah, and then also when the centaurs are at the top of the hill,
right,
and he's like, Hercules, centaurs,
and they're like, just wait,
and then like the sun turns just a little bit, and it's just guys on horses,
right,
and but The Rock is so, it's funny because The Rock's like, I don't even believe I'm that guy.
Right.
So you believe all this stuff, and he just does the centaurs. Really? He does, and his voice is still the same.
What does he say? He say like fucking centaurs at some point.
Fucking centaurs.
Oh my God.
He does that. Also, he has the flashbacks of killing his family, but he didn't really kill them. I don't know why he had a different like flashback.
Drugs.
True, right? Wasn't there something?
He got drugged.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
But he also didn't figure that out until the very end of the movie.
No.
See, that's the problem with this movie is I think the movie was basically this is my guess is that the movie was put out and it was made because Brett Ratner made it. Brett Ratner's one of these guys who's like, you know, he makes this whole stock and trade making sort of like middle of the road comedy movies that are like sometimes they're fun, sometimes they're weird, sometimes they're a little skeevy and gross, and he'll do some action. Everything's just kind of like fine middle of the road.
Yeah.
And what they made this movie and they're like, all right, we don't really know how to sell this movie. All right, let's just make the trailer and all the marketing look like it's the ultimate dude badass movie, right?
They got me.
The Rock's flipping things around. You get to see some ladies in togas, and oh man, this is gonna be cool. And then this movie exists for what it is, and there's no way of making the movie look like good and prestigious because it's not. But there's no way of getting people to see the movie without also tricking them and making them think, oh, this is just going to be a dumb action movie. It's like the movie's just ambitious enough that I think it rises above the poster for it, which is like the most dumb Photoshop. Like, I found a cool font that looks like blood, and it stays in that lane just long enough to get you into like is Hercules really a guy who's a god, or is he like not? Is he what's going on here? And it gets you into that question. But then also there's just it's not good enough to rise beyond that and become something that's actually a good movie.
No, it was The Rock's attempt at a later version of 300, in my opinion.
Yeah,
you know, at first, and then the story flips, and then you're like, oh, it's nothing like 300. I probably would have liked it way more if it was. You could have cut the budget in half and gave me more green screen.
Yeah,
but I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I hated it when I first, because you just said, hey, pick a movie you hate. And I was like, oh.
It's a good movie to pick.
Yeah, but you know what? It was a close tie. And you know what? I may have not picked maybe his worst one. The
Rock?
It was between this and the movie Snitch. Have you seen that or heard?
Never even heard of Snitch.
That was like,
what is this?
It's garbage, and maybe you'll bring me back on for that one. But I looked and I said to myself, which of these two movies can I stomach more? And
boy.
Snitch is The Rock's I remember I went back and listened to the synopsis. I think I genuinely did like Snitch more, and that's why I chose Hercules. But Snitch is really bad too. And it's one of the movies where The Rock is trying to be as emotional as The Rock can be, but he's just like a huge mannequin of a man trying to elicit emotion, and it does not work. And he's trying to save his son or nephew who got what's the word? It's not conned. They put this some sort of crime on him. He got framed.
He gets framed. Okay.
He gets his like nephew or son, I don't know which it is, gets framed. He has to then make up the money for the framing that the nephew got put on to pay off some mob bosses or something. But it's just bad. It's so bad.
Can there be a movie that exists at some point in The Rock's career where The Rock is not trying to do something to save a family member of his?
No.
I want there to be. That's all he does.
Well, if you look at all the posters of his movies over the years, they're the exact same movie. It's like the same movie, different timeline.
Right.
The Rock, different wig. Like Scorpion King, Snitch, Hercules.
Mm-hmm.
There's what's the one
that he just did where he's jumping out of a building?
Skyscraper. They're all one-offs. They're one-off, one names. He's probably I imagine he's in the room with the writers when they're like, all right, so we're thinking the movie's going to be called The Antithesis of Man, and he's like, nah, that sucks, call it Hercules. Like, just call it one word, like me, The Rock. Perfect.
That's it. That's all
it.
We need.
Finally, my movies are, unless he's doing a co-star movie like Calvin and or I call it Calvin and Hobbes, like the freaking tiger.
I would love to see The Rock in a Calvin and Hobbes movie. If The Rock is
it called? What is it called? Hobbs and Shaw.
Hobbs and Shaw.
Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Terrible.
Really?
But like, it's meant to be terrible in a good way. The way Fast and Furious movies are meant.
Fast and Furious is corny.
You know what though? I would say that Fast and Furious could lose out to these Hobbs and Shaw spinoffs now, because The Rock and Jason Statham are so badass that you just accept everything happening.
Right.
You just accept all this obnoxious, exposition and fight scenes. And then they had Idris Elba in there, and he was the bad guy, and he was dope as shit.
Right.
It was one of those movies where I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of fun. I was like, none of this would ever work, but I'm enjoying this.
Well, that's the beauty of The Rock, I think, is if you see that The Rock is in a movie, it's a guaranteed, I'm going to turn my brain off and watch this movie kind of movie. The Rock is not in this business to make high art. The Rock is just trying to be The Rock. The Rock's just trying to entertain. He's just trying to get you to smell what he's cooking, and what he's cooking up is a whole lot of a good time.
A whole lot of ass whooping. Oh. But you know what? You got to give him credit, because there's not really anyone who could do this genre like him.
Right.
If you think about it, he's totally very much the antithesis of what a superhero character would look like, and he still hasn't even been a superhero.
Right.
Which is one of those weird things. You're casting these guys who are like traditional actors, British guys, the dude who was Superman, Ben Affleck. You're getting the guy who played what's his name to be Shazam and all these characters.
Oh yeah, Zachary Levi.
Levi, who was on that NBC show. I forgot this.
Chuck.
Chuck.
Where he's the guy. He's the fix-it guy.
But The Rock is the perfect person for most of these superhero roles. There's just not. It's one of those things where The Rock almost eclipses the superhero character he would play.
Right.
So you haven't seen him in one yet.
Oh.
So he just makes up his own type of one-off movies where he's that he's the Superman of his own movie.
And that's the thing. Even in this is a movie I've talked about on this podcast is not liking, but the Jumanji movies, the reboots.
Yeah.
Where he's basically playing a parody of himself, essentially. Where he's this guy who's super duper buff, and he has all these powers about how great he is. And that's just The Rock. He's just playing a guy.
And I think the Jumanji movies I feel like when you reboot something, you always get backlash from nostalgia buffs, people who grew up with the originals.
Right.
But I watched a little bit of the Jumanji movie, and it was actually somewhat decent, because the character of The Rock is supposed to be a video game character. Same with Jack Black. I forget the girl's name. She's also
Gillian Anderson. I think.
I think she's also in all the Avengers movies. She plays the sister of Gamora. I forget her name. And Kevin Hart. But it's kind of cool because you're seeing what would be these kids who teleport into the video game character of The Rock, and it's like a little wimpy guy, and he's like, I've got muscles now, and it's funny to see The Rock play that instead of him like live that.
Right,
he's like confused that he looks like this, and he's playing up on the parody of it.
Exactly, which is there's something that's again, The Rock is not in this to make high art. The Rock, listen.
There's a lot of people who are not in it to make high art. It's time high checks.
But there's nobody who does it like The Rock. There's nobody who does it like, because I look at Will Smith, seen
Kevin Hart, in the sense of blockbuster money,
right? Like, but Will Smith, I think, has found his way of making art in that realm. Yeah, Kevin Hart's not necessarily that kind of guy.
No,
I don't think
specifically for this genre.
But genre, yeah. But that's the other thing too. Like, I mean, this new Will Smith movie, Gemini Man.
Yeah,
it's got the most insane, ridiculous, like classic Will Smith from like the '90s, early 2000s movie kind of premise. But it's directed by Ang Lee. It's directed by an Oscar-winning director.
Yeah,
and it seems very much like it could be a throwback kind of vibe, but also a really interesting, good movie on top of it.
It seems very interesting, but also at the end of the day, because it's Will Smith and you just know how much of, like, if you've ever watched a Will Smith interview or how he feels, even his Instagram and all the motivational stuff, it seems when you see it for the first time, you're like, oh, this is either very interesting and a cool premise, or so narcissistic.
Right.
Like, okay, Will Smith, we get it. You don't want anyone else to be in the movie. We can just fight yourself from the past.
I got a movie star proposal, and I want to hear what you think about this. I think so. You know how they say like all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. I think that The Rock could swap out and be, or sorry, the Will Smith could be The Rock in any movie that The Rock is a star in, but The Rock could not do the same thing for Will Smith.
You're absolutely right.
Will Smith started to run so The Rock could punch down the walls and run.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true. No, you're right. No, there are certain movies that The Rock is too unbelievable.
Right.
It's not.
The Rock can't be in The Pursuit of Happiness.
No. Oh God, no. He couldn't even be in Hitch. He couldn't do that for me.
Right.
I couldn't. I wouldn't.
I can't.
And that's what that movie Snitch is. That's him attempting to do something that it's still in his wheelhouse because it has action.
Right.
But there's a lot of emotion behind it he can't convey. And also, it's not even that he can't convey it. He just looks too hulkish of a man. It's like, like that. Not that being buff is a problem. It's just the emotion. The emotion is like clouded by testosterone. I'm like, I don't see you really getting this upset about this, man. I see you kind of just being like, things happen. Crack a beer, just like leave and go on with your day.
Yeah, The Rock is the kind of guy who like will post stuff on Instagram of him eating a plate full of cookies
and saying hashtag cheat day.
Right, he doesn't have any problems in the world. I can't imagine The Rock crying in a bathroom stall because he's homeless and he can't get his job on this Wall Street.
And also, I just think he's one of those guys where emotionally, I don't think I very much believe The Rock is emotionally probably detached in a sense, like not in a personal light, just because I feel like I'm sure he has emotional days,
right?
But it's the same way with like how certain baby boomers and older, like even like parents of this day and age, they don't know how to like convey emotion and say like, oh, I guess I love you all the time. Like my dad doesn't know how to do that.
Right. Mine either.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where you just want to like break the mold and get like a human moment from them, but they're so lost in whatever they grew up in that they don't know how to express that.
Right.
And I think The Rock, I mean, I'm sure he has emotional moments with family, friends, all that stuff, but on camera or even in his day-to-day, I don't think that's something he would ever lean towards, you know?
I feel like if The Rock, if he was telling his kids he loved them, I would imagine it would still come off like an old wrestling promo.
Maybe. But he's also lived through this, like, you know, through this era of time where being emotional is like it's fine now. Like being yourself and being who you are and having emotions is just completely normal, and people are like accepting of it. So you see more of these like motivational things from like The Rock or Will Smith or Kevin Hart on a podcast or something like that. So
Right.
I think he could lean into it, but I don't think that's his bread and butter.
No, I don't think so either.
No, I don't think it is.
It doesn't seem. It wouldn't seem right.
Mm-hmm.
It would feel weird to watch The Rock in that kind of a mind frame.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, with that Hercules movie, you know why I really got upset towards the end of it?
Please,
the credits. Did you watch them?
I did. And it just shows
how they duped everyone on all. Well, they didn't dupe. It shows. All the,
I mean, they duped it. They duped everybody.
Well, yeah, but it's all the legends that were told. It shows you what really happened,
right?
And that pissed me off when I'm watching that ending credit thing. I was like, wait, what? So the serpent was just this, or the boar was shot by Atalanta and then struck by. I was like, wait, what is this teamwork aspect? When I first saw it, now I don't care. But I hated that so much.
There's something about it's like I said. I think that this is a movie that like it was. If it had been made by perhaps a different director or marketed in a different way, then it would have been viewed a lot. It would have been viewed differently. I think that the biggest problem with this movie is the marketing of it.
Yeah,
it's doomed to fail because of because of the kind of movie it looks like it is. Because I'll tell you what, until you brought this movie up, there was absolutely no way I was going to ever watch this movie. I have no reason to watch this movie.
No one does.
No one does.
Except for a hardcore, die-hard Rocky fan.
Right.
That's it.
But
those are the people who watch these movies. You watch Snitch, you watch Hercules, you watch Skyscraper. There's another one that I can't remember that I watched where the world was like engulfed in water. It was kind of like the movie 2012.
Oh yeah,
but I don't know what it's called.
God,
I don't know.
It's got to be in that weird.
And then there's
framework.
also the movie he did, Rampage. You know that movie, right?
Yeah, the one that's based off the
video game.
Yeah,
dude. When I saw that. When I saw the trailer for that, I never watched that, so we couldn't have done a podcast about it. But I saw that trailer and I was like, Rampage, that's weird. I was like, starring The Rock, that's weird. And then I started watching the trailer and I'm like, that's weird. It's got a gorilla, it's funny. And then out of nowhere, there was like the dinosaur and then a wolf, and I'm like, yo, and they're destroying buildings. I was like, is this the game I used to play when I was like 8? And then I Googled it and I was like, it was like Rampage reference from the video. I was like, get out of here.
Right.
I was like, The Rock will not say no. That's what this is. No one needs this movie.
But the beauty of that's the other thing. If The Rock says yes to your movie,
you do it.
You're guaranteed, like Hercules.
Yeah.
Again, a movie that you have probably not thought about in the interim between watching it and me saying, hey, what's a movie you hate?
Literally.
And me and probably tons of other people who don't remember this movie ever existing. This movie tripled its budget almost. This movie it did 2.5 times its budget. It cost $100 million. It made $245 million at the box office.
And The Rock was like, that's a win, baby. Let's finally.
I'm surprised they didn't make a sequel to this movie already.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Ugh.
But there's just something about, I mean, you can't stop The Rock. I've said this on this podcast before. Every time I've seen movies with The Rock that I don't like, but there's something about The Rock as a human being and as a movie star who's maybe he may be like one of the last pure pieces of box office gold you'll ever get.
He's very much like the last action star right now.
Yeah,
like that genre is kind of. I mean, there's action movies, but it's not like the old school '90s to early 2000s, '80s days. The action movies now are all superhero entities. So. There's no like Van Damme, Seagal,
no Schwarzenegger.
Well, he's got a movie coming soon. But still, there's no one like that. The Rock is that right now. But that's true.
I mean, even like the new Terminator movie that's coming out, it's part of a franchise, and it's to this point where Schwarzenegger himself is sort of in that old school mold that The Rock plays now, where it's like I can't imagine him playing a superhero because he is a superhero. He's like the real life. That's why when I saw that John Cena was cast in the new Suicide Squad, I think it's an interesting casting choice, but I don't know how they're going to use it because same sort of deal. John Cena is this guy who is a pro wrestler. He's automatically larger than life because of that. So what are they going to do to make him fit into a superhuman universe?
And you know what's funny to me is for some reason I don't think John Cena can hold a candle to The Rock. for some reason I won't give John Cena the go ahead to make his movies. I don't want to see him. I'm like, John Cena, you stay. You know, maybe it's because he still wrestles. Maybe that's why.
Maybe,
but. Also, even if he left, I'm like, no one from WWE has done what The Rock has done. That's what it is.
Right.
The Rock has transitioned. He's taken that entity, that name,
he became Dwayne Johnson.
Brand. Yeah, he took that brand and, he ran with it. That brand is box office selling. That's what it is.
Right.
And don't forget, Pete Davidson's in the new one.
True.
Maybe he's Joker.
I'm really intrigued to see this new Suicide Squad.
I'm not, because I did not like the first one. And
nobody liked the first one.
I was thinking about doing that one. Oh,
it's been. we already
should have done that one. That one was ass on top of ass. Never mind
that one. We're set on Suicide Squad.
The
first time I ever watched Suicide Squad, I turned it off less than 10 minutes
Really?
in. Yeah. I couldn't do it.
I'm in the theater with my wife watching Suicide Squad, and as it's progressing, I'm like, is there a script? There's no script.
There's a playlist.
Every line seemed like a quip or a catchy turn of phrase.
Right.
None of it seemed or sounded like dialogue, but we won't get off topic with that. I was just going to say, the way you mentioned Will Smith and the way the triangles and the squares and The Rock, those guys have another stigma that's terrible for them is if they are in ensemble movies, they ruin them.
Yeah.
They ruin them.
Yeah.
The reason in my opinion, Suicide Squad wasn't bad because of Will Smith, but Will Smith is too big for that movie.
Yeah.
He's too big to be in a ragtag, beat 'em up, group movie. Him and one other person, maybe. Like him and Margot Robbie, they had a movie a little later. Sure.
Right.
But Will Smith, even Ben Affleck's in that movie for a second, and Jared Leto, but
right.
Will Smith is bigger than life, and he's not just, same with The Rock, they're not just actors.
Right.
They're phenoms. They're iconic. You can say Will Smith, and the way someone's life flashes before their eyes, Will Smith's catalog will flash before your eyes. You're like, Fresh Prince? Movies? TV? It's just, he's too much.
He's too much.
And when I saw that he was cast as Deadshot, I was like, how the fuck are you guys going to have him as Deadshot? The guy who literally wears a mask for 90% of all comics.
Doesn't make any sense.
I said there's no way. And I know Will Smith is going to absolutely refuse to wear that mask throughout the whole movie. You'll get him in maybe 3 scenes.
Right.
And they did that exactly that. And I was like, and this is why it's ass. I was like, DC, just keep making animated movies. Don't do this to me anymore.
Well, I mean, we got through it, and I hope that we hey, if you haven't seen Hercules, and you like The Rock, give it a watch.
Hercules. I love that part.
I am Hercules. Is this an R-rated movie, by the way? I can't tell.
No
there's
way.
There's a lot of like slashing and blood spurting. I couldn't tell whether this is PG-13 or R.
Same with The Rock and Will Smith. I think they try to stay in that window of PG-13 to like 17 so they can have a broader audience come watch it.
You almost see a titty pop out in the first like 5 minutes.
Yeah, you get one fuck.
Yeah.
One shit maybe.
Yep.
That's just,
And there's a lot of
FTC
blood.
stuff.
But you know what? Hey, we're still going to skirt the lines. We're going to make it happen. Thanks for bringing this movie to my attention.
No problem.
I legitimately am I feel like I learned something by watching this movie, which I rarely come away from this podcast feeling like.
I mean, you learn that actually Rock has progressed kind of. Like since then, I am more inclined to watch his films.
He's figured out how to lean into his rockness better.
Yeah, I think he's like at this point, I feel like he's very much found his niche and his brand.
Yeah.
And he knows how to sell it now.
If he's still at the point when he made this movie, it's obvious hearing him talk about training and like hanging out in Budapest for 8 months. Yeah, he hadn't figured it out. He didn't need to do any of that.
No, yeah.
If he'd just known, he could just show up, everything's cool. God, I can only imagine how
he's
great
now
this
realizing
movie would be.
all he needs is the cliff notes to his future scripts. Just, what am I doing? Screaming, yelling, hitting? Okay, we're good. Let's go. Scene 1. Action. I imagine he does that. There's no way he doesn't call action for himself.
Of course not.
Yeah, come on. No way.
No, absolutely no way.
There's no way he doesn't. That's a cut. I'm good with that. You want another? Really? Fine. Like,
oh man. Well, thanks for coming in today, dude.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
This is a fun episode. Where can the listeners find you if they want to follow more of what you do?
I'm on the internets at JD Witherspoon on most platforms. That's usually, if you Google me at JD Witherspoon, I'll come up. And I don't know. I don't have a podcast I want to promote. I have one, but I'm not consistent with it. And I'm starting a new one. So when that gets up and going, I don't know. But
there you go.
That's it. You know, at JD Witherspoon. I do gaming crap on the internet too at Run JD Run. That's another thing I do. I do something so out of what my friends think my wheelhouse is. I do stuff like that.
It's good to diversify your interests.
I do a lot of different things, man.
Yeah.
I try. It's
good.
Yep. So
you can find me at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram, jlightcomedy.com for show dates. And if you like the podcast, tell a friend, subscribe, leave a review, join the Facebook group, all that good stuff. And that's about it.
There it is.
This has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.